How's it going? How's it going? Welcome to my live stream. The date is the 5th of May. The 5th of May, and it's 9:30 p.m. And it's Friday night in Sydney. So I decided to do a live stream for tonight. Hopefully, I can connect with a few people on the live stream tonight. And it's been a pretty hectic week for me. So I have been busy doing lots of podcast interviews. It's been a really great experience to be interviewing a few guests from around the world, and and I'm really humbled to really get to experience their stories, and for me to also share what they've learned as well. So the first podcast interview that I did was with a guy named Daniel Bolger. He is a property investor, and he's also a buyer's agent based in Sydney, based in Victoria, and he helps people buy properties. And I met him on the live stream, so it's a pretty cool thing how you can meet people. And then also did a podcast interview with another guy. His name is Michelangelo Flores, and what we did was we spoke about his life in Japan, and he was sharing all these pretty cool stories about how he was living in Japan, how he was able to break through cultural norms, and just his experience there. And I thought that was a really cool thing. So, I'm really grateful for you guys to be on my podcast. And I've already posted this, so if you want to check out the interview, please go out there and check it out. So tonight I have got my my wine. I normally don't. I've been, I used to have an issue with drinking. I used to drink quite a bit. It started, when I was in my 20s. I was drinking quite a bit, and it's just Australian culture, right? It's Australian culture where we just tend to we want to just drink, and it's our place to get along with people and socialize, right? So, I grew up in Australia, and drinking is also a big part of it. And as we all do, we drink too much and we black out and we do all these crazy things, right? But then over the years, it started to take its toll. And I decided, you know what, I'm not going to drink anymore. I'm going to either just drink just the weekends. So then it just became just the weekend, just drinking over the weekend. But then I realized that on a Friday night, I tend to drink a lot, and then I lose my sleep. And then next day, I always wake up groggy, tired, and I just don't seem to enjoy myself, And I feel that the whole weekend is wasted due to just drinking. So I took about a year off from just drinking over the weekend, which is really great, and I only drink on special occasions. So today is a special occasion because it's a live stream, and this week was the first week when I did my first live stream, and it's a big accomplishment for me. So I'm going to finally celebrate that I've done my first live stream. I get to tick it off the list, and I'm going to try to have a bit more structure about my live streams, or have something of value, or whatever it is. I'm not too sure what it is, but this is it. This is my live stream, and hopefully it gets better over time. So this is it. I got my first like. Yay, someone liked it. Cool. Thanks for the like. Not sure who it is, but someone liked my live stream. Thank you very much. Okay, so I'm going to pour myself a glass of wine. So what is this glass of wine? What is this glass? What is this drink? It's the organic, vegan-friendly Shiraz Cabernet 2020. Not too bad. So I'm just going to, here we go. Friday night. Let's go. So I've also got a few books on my table here, and I've got my grapes here, all sorted. Okay. I used to go out a lot on my Friday nights. I used to go out to parties and stuff. As you get older, you just want to stay home and just do your own thing. But that's the thing. Okay. So tonight I'm going to be covering some books that I've recently read, and some other books that has really stood out in the test of time for me. So there's 4 books on this table here. So let's get straight into it. But first, I'm just going to have my drink. All right. So here we go. So the book that I'd like to share with you, well, there's 4 books. So the first book here is 30 Properties Under 30 by Eddie Darlene. I've already done a video review of this one, and I'll go into this a bit more detail today. The next book that I've got here is called The Art of War by Sun Tzu. I don't know whether you can see that. Okay, this is a Penguin book. There's other books out there that covers this topic, but this is a very powerful. I'll get into this one. This one's the first time ever I'm actually going to talk about this, but I actually wrote a novel a couple of years ago, and this novel was called Sky Island. And the reason why I want to talk about this today is its relevancy over what's happened over the past couple of weeks. And this book has been an integral part of helping me. So I'll quickly share with you what that is. And finally, this other book, you might have heard of it. It's by Dale Carnegie. It's called How to Stop Worrying and Start Living. And this book is probably my Bible. It's one of my Bibles anyway, and it's really helped me get through life in general. So let's have a look at the first. Book. So the first one is by Eddie Darlene. This is 30 Properties Before 30. So I remember interviewing Eddie Darlene several years ago. This is back in 2020, and I remember coming across one of his advertisements, and one of his advertisements was just promoting, or one of his videos was just promoting on how he was sharing about how he was able to purchase all these properties. And Eddie Darlene, he grew up in a place called Mount Druitt, which is the low socio-economic area of Sydney. So it's not a really nice place to be. It's very poor, lots of crime. And in this book, he talks about his story about how he used to grow up, and there used to be syringes on the floor. There was houses on fire, cars on fire. There's alcoholism. I said that wrong. And there was a lot of things that's happened. And then what's really inspiring is that upbringing, that tough upbringing, really helped him go out there and seek money, because he realized that people who have money are the people who own properties. It's an amazing thing. People who own properties have money and are usually rich. So then he started learning about properties. And his mum was there to help him. His mum was around, but his father left. And he said that he started learning properties, and then he learned how to invest. He learned how to do calculations and stuff. And then he worked 2 jobs. He worked in McDonald's, and he worked another job. And then eventually he saved enough money, and then he bought his first property, which wasn't the best looking property, but it was still a property. He finally got a loan and got a property. And then from that point, he learned a lot about his first experience, which was how to buy a property, how to make income from it. And then he bought his second property, and then he bought his third property, and he just continued the cycle. And what he did was he just had all these different ways in which you can invest in property. So I thought this book was a really great book, because the reason is because it's just very easily to read. It's very easy to read, and there's a lot of different ways in which he does his calculations when he finds these properties. And the 3 things that he shares with you in this book, the top 3 things in order to find properties is, number 1, it has to be under market. So for example, if you were to look at 5 different properties, and you find that those 5 properties have 1 million each, but one of those properties is actually 900K, then that 900K property is actually an under market value property. So that's rule number 1, find an under market value property. And rule number 2 is that it has to have good rental yield. It has to be positive cash flow. So he talks about how the rental yield has to be between 5% to 6% or 6% plus. So therefore, that's what you got to do, right? And then that's number 2, is that you go ahead and then you find the properties that's under market, and then find properties that's positive cash flow. And then from that point, you can move on to the next step, which is you want to go for growth as well. So number 3 is growth. So it has to be, you got to invest in an area where it is subjected to growth. And those are those top 3 things there. and I thought that was really, really good. So that's that in a nutshell. And yeah, I mean, it's a great book. I really was really inspired. It talks a lot about how compounding works. If you hold on to a lot of properties, you're able to reap the rewards on all of those properties. So I thought that was really, really good. So it talks about what's your why, finding getting the right loans in terms of the banks and so forth. And there's a lot of good pictures of him standing in front of his houses, and you can't help feel but envy sometimes, of course. But yeah, there was a really good analogy here, which is the property clock. I don't know whether you can see that there. There it is, the property clock. And in this property clock, it talks about the different cycles in terms of what you call it, the different cycles in terms of property. So, for example, if you're at the 12 o'clock, that means that the market is starting to decline. If it's at the 3 o'clock, it's declining. If it's at the 6 o'clock, it's at the bottom of the market. If it's 9 o'clock, it's rising. And if it's 12 again, it's at the peak of the market. So I've seen this analogy being used a lot in different types of property investment books. So that's a good thing to remember. I was looking at different properties in Perth and Sydney and Melbourne, and Perth right now is declining. It's expensive, but it's declining. And then you look at Melbourne. Melbourne's also declining a bit as well, but getting a lot of investors from Sydney flying over. It's really expensive in Sydney. Sydney is super expensive. Super expensive. Right now, you can probably go to Queensland or Perth. Those and Adelaide. Those seems to be areas where it's actually growing. I went to the bank. Went to the bank the other day, and I was talking to one of the bank managers or bank reps, and he said that he was going to wait after 6 months, and then he's going to invest in a property in Queensland. So he's going to go to Queensland and he's going to buy a property there, because the reason is because of the Olympics. And if you if you buy a property and it's in the Olympics, then obviously it's going to shoot up. So you got to look at some pretty good capital growth there. This is all about pulling the trigger, right? Okay, so that's 30 under properties before 30. Okay. All right. So let's go for the next book. Okay. Which book should I go? Should I go Sky Island, Art of War, How to Stop Worrying? Okay. Okay, so let's go for How to Stop Worrying and Start Living by Dale Carnegie. Okay, so this book right here, How to Stop Worrying and Start Living by Dale Carnegie. This is an amazing book. This has really saved my soul. The reason is because we go through life. Everyone's human. We go through life. We go through tragedies. We go through tough times. We go through good luck, bad luck, and there doesn't seem to be a book out there that covers worrying, how to stop worrying and start living, right? Because we tend to worry about a lot of things. We worry about our finances. We worry about our family, our health, our job, kids. It just the list just goes on and on and on. So, and it comes a point where your worry becomes habitual, where because you're constantly worrying about all these things, it just becomes the normal. It becomes the norm where you're just worrying all the time, and it becomes chronic, where you become anxious, and worrying and anxious and anxiety does cause stress. And if you do a lot of research on stress, it does impact your body. It does impact your body, and yeah. So there was a lot of times in my life when I was struggling quite a bit. I remember one time when I went to the Philippines, I had a great time over there. I was there for about 5 years. I was working as a Aussie one-on-one trainer, and I wasn't making that much money back then. So sometimes I had work, sometimes I didn't. And I was really struggling back then. But then I was constantly worrying. I was worrying about so many things, and I came across this book, How to Stop Worrying and Start Living. Well, actually, I already came across this book about 10 or 20 or 12 years ago when I had other problems back in Perth. And then I remember reading it, and then I came across this book again in the Philippines. I read it again. And now I'm in Sydney. I came across this book again, which is in my bookshelf, and I read it again. So I always seem to read this book in times of crisis. And inside this book it's just the way it's written. It just covers a really amazing stories on how you can conquer worrying and start living. And there's all these different techniques that you can apply. It's not just something where you just read recreationally. You want to really go through it and read it carefully and underline, take notes. So if you look at this book here, I don't know whether you can see it, but you can see I've just written all over it. I've just got underline, notes, you name it. It's just like I've just highlighted the whole book, right? I've got my notes everywhere. And I can see myself going through this book again. I'm going to read through this book again. But yeah, the first secret of how to stop worrying and start living would definitely be live in day-tight compartments. So, for example, when we worry, when we stress, when we go through having a lot of anxiety, we tend to think about a lot of things. We think about the future, we think about the past, we think about all the problems that's occurred in the past, we worry about our future, right? But the first antidote to conquering worry is learn to live in date-tight compartments. Don't think about the past. Have the past as a different room, right? The present is in one room. The future is another room. You want to shut down the past, the future, and just lock down the present and live. And he says this in the book is that you want to live your day to bedtime. All right. So don't think about anything else. Just live your life all the way to bedtime and just make it to bedtime. That's it. And if you sleep, you wake up, live again, make it to bedtime. And that's it. Just focus on that. So I was also reading another book. I finished reading another book. It's a Buddhism book. And there was a quote in there that really struck me. And the basic analogy of the quote by Buddha says that try to imagine he shares a story about a king ordering a person, I think a criminal or something like that. They ordered this person to be sentenced to 100 knives, and then once that's over, and that person didn't die, but it was in a lot of pain. And then the king said, "I want to order another 100 knives into that person," and then that person didn't die. And then finally the king said, "I want you to go to the villages and get the most sharpest knives you can and have 100 knives again into that person." Yeah, I know that sounds really crude, but the point is that when you think about the past, you're hurting yourself. Every time you think about the past, it's like you're driving a knife into yourself. So what's really got me is that when you think about the past, you tend to you think about what you call it. You might be guilty about something you've done in the past, or something that you've done, or something a harmful memory. Whatever it is, the past is the past, and it can still hurt you. It can really hurt you, right? So if you think about the past, it's hurting you. So try not to think about the past. Just work in day-tight compartments. Just live in the present moment. And also, if you think about the future, you're worried about the future, what's going to happen, right? So that's it. That's how to stop worrying and start living. And there's all these really great golden nuggets into this. There's other stories on how this guy he was struck with illness, and then eventually they asked, they said that he only had about 3 months to live, and then he said, you know what, I can either hang around for 3 months and then die, or I can just go out there, live my life, travel the world, and just live my life before I die. So that's what he did. He went on a cruise. He bought his medical equipment. I think that medical equipment with the thing with a stand or something. And then he brought that along, and then eventually he went on the cruise, and he got to travel the world, and he didn't die. And then because of he traveled the world, he had a great time. He sort of like healed himself, and then he lived healthy. So I thought that was a really amazing story that shared in this book, How to Stop Worrying, Start Living. So this book is fantastic for your mental health. This book will absolutely soothe you if you're going through a hard time. go through this book. This is a very fantastic book. I love this book so much, and it's probably the only book where I've read multiple times. I've read this book 3 times already, and I'll probably be reading it again pretty soon anyway. So yeah. All right. So that's Dale Carnegie book, How to Stop Worrying and Start Living. All right. Time for my grapes. What? All right. Next book. Okay. So this next book is called The Art of War by Sun Tzu. You might have heard this book in the past. It's Art of War. You might have heard about it. You might have read it, or you might not have read it. But this book, the principles in this book, I've been applying for pretty much my whole life since I've learned it for over about 10 years. Sun Tzu was a Chinese strategist or commander-in-chief, and he helped defeat an army. It was a bit like the movie 300, but he helped with his limited amount of army. He was able to defeat kingdoms. He was able to defeat multiple emperors. He had a vast number of armies, and Sun Tzu in this book it is all these different strategies in which he shares with you how he was able to defeat the army, and a lot of people who have read this book are usually entrepreneurs, CEOs, even presidents have read this book, and it's amazing how if you look at different, if you look at politics, if you look at countries and how they operate, I can clearly see that they applied strategies in The Art of War by Sun Tzu, and some of the quotes that's in this, you can apply it for the rest of your life. So, for example, he talks about warfare is the art of deception. So that's one of the quotes by Sun Tzu, and is that when you're going to war with someone, when you're going to war with something, you want to cloak yourself in an array of deception. You don't want to give away your position, because Sun Tzu said that he said that keep your plans as dark as night, but when you move like a thunderbolt. So what he means by that is that when you strike, you want to strike that is not anticipated by the enemy. You want to keep all your plans as dark as night, and it doesn't matter if you keep all your plans as dark as possible. It doesn't matter how wise the enemy is or how smart they are; they can never anticipate your moves because they don't know what your plans are, and that gives you control. And what Sun Tzu also said is that you don't you go to war and win. You don't go to war and then seek to win. So the person who wins the war is the person who does many calculations in his temple. So if you want to go to war, which is not it doesn't have to be attacking someone, but if your war is to become rich, or if your war is to lose weight, or if your war is to find the love life or find the love of your dreams, in order to win that war, you need to do many calculations in your temple. You need to do lots of planning. You need to do lots of calculations. You need to come up with all the risks. You need to do lots and lots of different plans to find out ways in which you can achieve it. So, for example, let's say that you want to lose weight. That's your war. You want to lose 5 kilos. Well, to do calculations, you need to figure out, okay, how much do I weigh at the moment? What am I eating? Am I tracking things? Have I seen a mentor? Have I seen a coach? Do I have gym membership? There's all these type of things. And if you write down all the things and you come up with all the plans, if I did this, how much would this cost? So you just constantly calculating, planning. And then eventually you're going to come across the best course of action. And when you do come across the best course of action, you execute and then you win. So That's what Sun Tzu talks about. There's so many great things. There's so many great things that you can learn from Sun Tzu Art of War. It does work. It works to a T. And this book has changed my life, and it's helped me win many, many different battles. At work, in the office, at home, in my life as well. It can help you get your way. And this one is just it's part of the top reading list that you have there. Okay, yeah, you got to have it on your bookshelf. So there's different types of Art of War books. This one's Penguin books, so it's very simple. This one is just a couple of so you can see this is a paragraph, so a couple of paragraphs there. Okay, and so it can be complicated to read. You want to go for the ones that has distilled the language of it and made it easy for you to understand. And there's pictures, cartoons that help you absorb the theories. But if you can, go on Google and type in I think it's Art of War summary, and I think there's a collection of summaries on this book. And I don't know the name of the person who did the voiceover for the summary, but it's really good, and it goes through each of the chapters and summarize it so well, and that way you can learn it, you can pick it up as you go along. So it's hard. It's a hard book to read because it's got a lot in there. But yeah, go through the summary first, and it'll really help you out. Okay, on to the last book. Before I get into that, let's have some grapes, shall we? Okay. Alrighty, for the last book. Okay. Last, but definitely not least, my own book called Sky Island. This was the first novel I ever wrote. Always wanted to write a novel. And this book came about when I lost my job. I lost my job back in 2016 or something like that. I just quit. I just thought it was a bunch of crap, and I just quit. I was working in a big company, big corporate company, and I just didn't like it anymore. I just walked out. I just had enough. I had enough. Just walked out. And anyway, I had 3 months. It took me 3 months to get a job, and during that time, I just went full on creative mode. And I thought, I've got all this time. What am I going to do? I know I'm going to write a novel. I've always wanted to write a novel. I've got this time. So I must have spent a whole month coming up with the story of this book. It took me a whole month to come up with it. I remember I went to a cafe, I had my notebook, and then I just started coming up with different stories and different timelines, and I was coming up with the climax and the story. It was just all in my head. It was such an amazing experience. I just remember it was just pure creativity, and it was amazing things. I feel like I want to write another one now. But yeah, it took me a month to come up with the story, and I think it took me another month to write the whole script, like to write the dialogue. So I came up with a basic story, and then I started writing the dialogue. So I came up with the characters. What were the background of each of these characters, and then how will they communicate? And what's their personalities like? It was really cool. And then what I did was I got pictures of the actresses of who I wanted to star in the movie. So if this was a movie, I'll have Christian Bale as the main actor, and I'll have Chester Cumberbatch as the villain. I'll have what's the name? Natalie Portman as the other character. And I have my other friend, her name is Christina, as the other person as well. And there's all these different characters in this book, but I won't give it away. But I'll just give you a bit of a taste of it. So the story starts off with this guy. His name is Mark Andrews. He's an accountant, and what he does is he loses his job. He loses his job, and then he comes home from work, and then he finds that his wife cheats on him, and he walks into the room, and he finds that there is this man just standing there staring at him. And this mysterious guy. Who is this guy? And then just stares at him. And then all of a sudden he blacks out and he falls down the stairs, and then he blacks out. And then before you know it, he wakes up, and then the house is like empty. The house is empty, and he realizes that his wife has left him. And then he goes off, gets drunk, goes down an alleyway, goes to the pub, and then he gets really, really drunk. And then he gets into a fight with these people at the bar, and then he gets thrown out. And then he's just so drunk, and he's in an alleyway. And then he's in an alleyway, and then someone tries to mug him, right? And then all of a sudden, someone intervenes, and there's this kid that intervenes and like defends him. And then he blacks out again, right? But he wakes up in another person's house, and this other person is fixing him some tea, and then he's just trying to think about what's happened. He's depressed because he's lost everything. He lost his job, lost his wife, and he's been beaten up and everything. And then anyway, but then there's other things that's happened along the way. So you can probably come up with the story. You can probably think about what's going to happen next. But he meets all these people along the way, and he starts to learn things. He starts to pick himself back up. He starts to understand the rules of nature, understands the rule of life, and so forth. And then it builds up right to the end. And then the ending is at this place called Sky Island, and there's a huge significant reason for the end of the book, which is Sky Island. So I picked the name Sky Island is because I was amazed by this place in Scotland called the Isle of Skye. It's this beautiful place in Scotland where it's next to the ocean. There's greenery. There's trees. It's just absolutely amazing. It's just something out of a fairy tale. And I imagined the final scene of this book is going to be at that place called Sky Island. Okay, and it's that was it. So that's it. Sky Island. So I gotta admit, it hasn't sold as many copies, but it did sell some copies. I'm very happy it sells some copies. So that's it, Sky Island. Please go out there, check it out. It's in Amazon, and it will mean a lot to me if you have read the book. And please contact me. I'd love to meet readers who've read the book and just tell me what you think of it. So if you let me know what you think, Sky Island. If there was a book that I were to write again, what would it be? If you have an idea for a book I should write, please let me know. I've been thinking hard about what I'm going to do next. What's my next project? And I've been thinking maybe I would just write another book, and it might be a sales book. I haven't written a sales book yet, but I have done a sales course. I launched a sales course earlier this year. It's all about the playbook to B2B sales. And I've got that book there. I've got that course there. It's on Udemy. I'm only selling for about $5 at the moment. And what's happening is I'm thinking about turning that course into a book. So we'll see what happens. But I did think about writing another novel. But the process of writing a novel is so laborious, so time consuming, so tedious. It's like you're giving birth, right? So anyway, that is it. So how's everyone going? How is everyone going on Friday night? It's probably not too sure where you are in the world at the moment, but do let me know. So at the moment, those are the books. I'm just going to eat some more. So I did a podcast, 2 podcasts this week, and the first podcast was by Daniel Bolger, and he talks about how he was able to acquire multiple properties and how he was able to build a investment property portfolio. And he just shares a story about how he started. He met a mentor at work, and then eventually he learned the secrets, and then he eventually invested in his properties. So that interview is on my YouTube channel, so be sure to check it out. It'll be great if you can check it out. Just let me know what you think of it. And the other interview was by Michelangelo Flores. He's based in Japan, and he likes cigars. He likes his Rolexes. He likes those type of things. So okay, so I am just going on Instagram at the moment. Okay, let's have a look. I'm really happy with my growth at the moment in terms of my YouTube channel. So I can see that I've just popped up there. All right. So this year I've actually I have hit 2,000 subscribers. So it took me a long time. I've been on the channel for quite some time. I've been uploading YouTube videos for about 6 years so far. Can't believe how fast it's been. It's been 6 years. My first video that I uploaded, it was just short animations, and those ones are still getting views till this day. But since then I've just been uploading just all different types of videos, books that I've read, things that I've learned. Sometimes videos that I make, I've got to admit, it's not that good, and it's only got a few views. But I don't know why. There's something about YouTube. I just really enjoy doing it. I just like it, So yeah, so at the moment that is what I'm doing. Alrighty. So tell me, what are some of the things that you have learned this week? I am curious. Nothing? I would say that the biggest thing that I have learned this week is that your thoughts leads to your feelings, which lead to your behaviors. So if you have a thought and it's a good thought or bad thought, that will trigger a particular feeling in yourself, and that feeling will drive your behaviors. So if you want to change your behaviors, you have to change your thoughts. And you don't realize some of the thoughts that you have. Sometimes they're good, sometimes bad, but sometimes the thoughts that you have are habitual. You just automatically have these thoughts, and that's because of neuroplasticity. That's because of the brain, and you just seem to it's just something that you've been doing for quite some time, right? So it's become a habit. So if you want to control your destiny, then you have to monitor your thoughts. You have to control your thoughts, and people who are depressed, anxious, and worry and have anxiety, they tend to think these negative thoughts, which can affect their feelings and affect their behaviors. So to take control of that, you have to be mindful of your thoughts. Be mindful, is this thought going to help me in my future, or is this thought going to decline or not help me in my future? So that's probably the biggest thing that I've learned anyway. Okay. So let's have a look at what's happening in the property market. So if I go to realestate.com.au, I'm not sure whether I can share my screen. Don't think I can. I'm not too sure there. But anyway, it's too bright there. Okay. I'm also really excited that I'm going to be interviewing another guest on my show next week. His name is his name is I can never pronounce his name, but his name is Osin O'Malley. He is this very famous YouTuber who does YouTube videos on Rolexes, and he's got about 80,000 subscribers at the moment. And he agreed to do an interview with me, so I'm really keen to go through that there. Really happy there. Okay, so that is that. I think I'm going to call it a night. But yeah, that is my live stream for tonight. I hope you enjoyed it. Yeah, we covered quite a lot tonight. We covered the different books, my key takeaways, some of the things that I learnt, and yeah, what's up and coming. So anyway, I really appreciate your time. If you're watching this, thank you for tuning in, and I guess I will see you guys in the next one. All right, so take care, guys. Bye.